DeFi is something that will never go away anymore. So we all have to figure out how to properly do DeFi, right? And there are definitely a couple of companies out there who are doing this already quite well because, again, they have also considered themselves to be a player on the market that wants to grow substantially also and provide their offerings to a lot of people out there so that they have a better and easier way to improve their finances. And now those companies they strive for proving their ambitions by acquiring certain licenses, right, from regulators that prove that they do actually take care of these things and that they have a value in security.
Welcome to the Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Alexandra, your host, joined by my amazing co-host Tristan, a former security engineer and co-founder of Escape. Today, I'm excited to have an amazing guest, Max Imbiel, join us. Max is the driving force behind Head Security, an agency specializing in vCISO activities and currently serving as the CISO at Bitpanda, an online crypto trading platform. Max's career began in IT and software development and took him from various industries, with the last one being finance. His notable leadership roles include Deputy CISO at UniCredit Bank and most recently Deputy Group CISO at N26. Max is also a frequent keynote speaker and ambassador for Mission Top 5, a community organization that aims to propel Germany in the top 5 digital nations in Europe by 2025. With his extensive experience in the security financial sector, I had the chance to learn from Max about the unique challenges of building secure financial applications and what the explosion of decentralized finance might bring. Dive right in. Hi, Max. I'm very excited to have you on the podcast today. Thanks a lot for accepting to be among our guests. So you have a huge background in security, and you also started your own consulting agency and security as well in Germany. So you can share your experience with us, and I think also I've been reading more and more on different security topics and reading books and articles. I've been trying to was quite new myself, so I'm trying to learn as much as possible. And I recently read also an article where it was mentioned, that financial industry where you have the most experience and the most data breaches in 2020. And I think it's single attacks that impacted nearly 1,000 different organizations. So what, with your finance experience, what urgent steps do you think should different financial organizations should actually take, to reduce this amount of breaches and actually prevent them?
Yeah, so first and foremost, thank you, Alexandra, for inviting me. It's an honor to be here and to participate in your podcast with all the other very, very interesting and professional, highly professional people that you have on here. So for coming back to your question on these breaches, especially in the finance industry, I think what kind of opened our eyes in the past 1 or 2 years, basically, also mainly due to the impact of COVID, we have seen that as we are relying more and more on service providers, right? Also in the finance industry. So nothing really is kind of being self-developed anymore by the established banks because they're outsourcing their developments, they're outsourcing software as a solution services as well. And because that was kind of nearly, I don't want to say like a given, but just the right choice to do. But there were no, let's say, there were no real restrictions on, okay, and how do we make this, all of this really secure, right? Or how do we make sure that this partner that we're working with is actually secure and does take their security very, very serious. And because of that, we have seen last year, especially in Germany, a very big data breach, right, that came out of one single company that was offering its services for a lot of different banks and because they were breached, the company data of nearly all of those banks were also breached. And so what needs to happen from my point of view is, of course, for one, like you said, right, I'm more, due to my role as CISO, I'm more concentrating on the overall second line aspect of things. So taking the governance and the risk and compliance aspects of the security very serious so that the business can still work, but we still meet the requirements that we need to meet due to regulatory requirements, but also be even better than that, right? Because just sticking to compliance is never enough. But at least now we have a little bit that view of the importance of securing the supply chain, right? Because that's what it's about, as you just said. We see that the CRA is coming up, right? The Cyber Resilience Act that takes very serious for all service providers to have security by design, security by default. And so what needs to happen, I think, industries now is really to take care of making sure that the developments that others do meet the requirements that they have from their own security point of view, as well as their own developments. So this goes vice versa, right? We need to take care of our own developments as well as the developments of a service provider that we outsource to. And so because of that, there are, of course, certain standards that we need to adopt to, or that we need to make sure that we're taking a closer look in. Like, do we all do a good threat modeling, right? For new developments? Do we have a secure development lifecycle implemented? Do we do continuous testing of our environments, of our products? And what I think could be also will be the implementation of a software bill of materials, NSBOM. Because with that transparent view on what is actually being used on the product side, right, and what is all in there, I think this really helps in protecting that way more.
Yeah, like you can't secure, what you don't see.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
So that's definitely like the first step. And actually, it's very interesting that you mentioned like software providers, and I think that the whole security market, because I recently read a book about it, providers, integrators, consultants, like all of it, like they play such an important role. And I think I can feel like especially for the financial institutions, as you mentioned. And what do you think at any point would the banks actually consider creating their own team in-house instead? Or it would be like too high, switching costs? Or maybe if you build, companies from the ground, or like if it's a very fintech company like N26, would in this case it's something that they would consider?
Yeah, right. This is, I guess, what we can see from an historical viewpoint, right, is that banks in the past, banks were never a IT company, right? Banks were banks. They offered services through their branches. You could go into a branch, could go and talk with an accountant there and open up your own account, check your balance or whatever, right? Or make a transfer. Now, the new kind of way how it's being done is all digitally. Through your smartphone, on your web app. Nobody really goes into a branch anymore, I would say. Or nobody below the age of 40, probably 40, 50.
Yeah, depends on the generation, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. And so what you can see nowadays with the new kind of players in the field, the fintechs, N26, like you said, right? They have started their companies completely by building up everything by themselves. So they're already way more an IT company than they are a bank, so to speak, right? But they're developing into it themselves more into a IT company.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of tricky situation that both kind of face. So the fintechs, they have already been starting with all these technical details also on their security sites, because they know if they want to be be recognized as a bank, they need to take care of regulatory compliance, they need to take care of security standards and so on. And so transition more, or would like to transition more into the IT side of things, have it hard because, again, they have most definitely outsourced all their development to third parties. And having that in your overall governance model is way harder to control than you would have everything in-house. But it's also hugely expensive to get back everything in-house. So if you would start again building up your whole development teams for all your products and so on and so forth, that is a huge cost that you would ramp up to have. So there is, I mean, what we're doing in finance for years now already is a proper risk management. And only with proper risk management, the banks can really determine if they want to launch a certain new product, right? Or if they want to jump into a new market. And it's exactly the same if they want to reorganize themselves again. Do you really want to bring certain parts back into your own corporate structure? Or do you still rely on your third parties? If you still rely on your third parties, you need to have a proper third-party risk management. If you have everything in-house or certain parts in-house, then you, of course, need to control that as well in more detail than you would do with your third party. So it's always this balance that you kind of need to strike.
And do you have like a strong opinion, on actually like bringing some this in-house or outsourcing?
Not really a strong opinion. I would say my strong opinion is also very much risk-based or opportunity-based in that regard, right? So if we take a look at certain partners that offer services that would be hugely beneficial for us, or we think this could open up a new customer market, then of course we make ourselves, we question ourselves, should we do this completely alone, right? Or do we partner with someone? And very often, especially if you want to get the grounds on a completely new area, it makes sense first to maybe work with someone externally because they already have experience in the field, and then later on determine if you want to now in-source more of that again, than to build everything up by yourself, because there are partner with them. But as I said, I think first and foremost, what you then need to do to really determine how to proceed and how to go forward is a proper risk management of things.
And what's to be like, the criteria for successful partnerships? Like, how would you evaluate, okay, I want to work with this company? Because especially, I think in the financial sector, like, trust is such an important, you need to do, like, how do you consider, okay, we maybe would like to work with this organization?
Right. Trust is, I think, the perfect word here, right? So I think the concept that we all kind of, in security at least, that we all agree on is what everybody should adopt or implement more is the zero trust principle, right? Now, but that again goes only into the aspects of technology. We still need to trust people, right? Trust a company to work with us because we have talked with their management, their developers, their responsible people. We gain this level of trust, but then we can still say, okay, if we want to work with you, here are our requirements because we share company or customer data with you. So you need to have a high level of sophistication in your security that to us. A couple of years back, and I'm speaking from experience here, sadly, if you would do this kind of thing with companies like Microsoft or Google or Amazon, they would just be like, come on, man, we're Microsoft, we're Google, we're Amazon, we don't need to prove or show you evidence of stuff because it's us, right? Everybody knows us. But even that changes. So also the big corporations, let's say, have recognized that they need to show some proof, they need to show some evidence of their security practices and how they proceed with things. That was for smaller service providers quite the struggle, actually. Because a couple of years back as well, you could just do business with someone, right? As long as the contracts were fine and maybe you had some alignments on data protection clauses, right? Because that was the first thing that kind of ramped up in that area. Everything was good, but you didn't have always like people asking you, okay, do you have a security certification, or can you show us your latest pen test result or something like this? And that was a struggle for a lot of service providers out there to ramp up the game, so to speak, to also show that they're taking care of these things quite seriously. But we're getting there, I'd say. So the awareness of that you as a service provider also need to have a documented kind of security level, right? That you can just show is something that people are recognizing more and more, because it's also for them absolutely still an advantage to their competitors. So if I would be a service provider and I can show that I have my product, or I have a certain certificate, SOC 2 type 2 or something like this, that would already show that I'm potentially a bit more safer, or I'm taking security more serious than maybe another competitor next to me. So why not partner with those companies? And I think this awareness is growing.
Yeah, like you also had the development background, like you had the security like experience, I think with Java and it was Swift.
Yeah.
And so the this development background, do you also actually somehow subconsciously think, pay attention on how like technologically advanced your partners are?
I mean, sure, right. I think when we look at certain programming languages, the ones that I've used in the past or that I've grown up with, right, those were basically the go-to standard for all kinds of programming for every area out there. And again, back then, security was not the biggest concern, especially not in programming, really.
Okay. Everyone hated it more. The security.
I would even go as far as say nobody really knew of the word security in context to application development.
Okay.
And so now that we have all of this, of course, again, it's this concept of you have already built something, and now someone comes in and says, but you have a hole here and here and here and here. And so now all of a sudden you need to maybe even tear down a certain part of your building because it's so insecure. And if you would have thought about security from the get-go, of course, right, then you wouldn't need to tear down stuff and build it up again completely new. Which is why now, with the concept of secure development, with DevSecOps, for example, right, you are always packing security into your software right from the beginning, which is tremendously helpful. But again, coming back to the programming languages themselves, I think if we look forward, what also the US has just recently published is like the go-to standard going forward for supply chain security as well. The reliance on using memory-safe languages, because those would already limit your risk factor for attacks on these languages exponentially. Forward more and more also in the IT industry is way more usage of stuff like Rust or Go than the older Java or C++ or whatever is still in use. And it's still being used, but building up the security and the defense around those systems is way more complicated than they are with the newer ones.
And like you mentioned, for example, traditional banks, like Unicredit, where you work, there's some things that still building old, so I guess it's mainly like old languages in which like the applications were built. Like for example, I used Unicredit app because I was client of N26 and Unicredit for different reasons. Well, I love N26. Now. But you can see like in the app, like it's so much difference, between like how the app is used. So do you think there are actually more risks and this switching costs like Rust or Go for this traditional banks is going to take a really long time?
I mean, sure, absolutely, right. This goes back to what we already discussed on, do I want to change my overall structure again, right, to what I have already built. And these the traditional banks, right? They have their apps are all like puzzle pieces, jigsaw puzzles, because they need to connect to various different backend systems that they have built over the past years with mainframe systems that are sitting in some warehouse data centers. And those are still kind of sometimes using systems or using, let's say, very complex and very historically built landscapes that they have in their backend. Very often their apps, their mobile apps, look and feel not very user friendly, right? As the ones from the newer fintechs from companies like N26. And that is just because, right, you need to put these puzzle pieces in your backend together to be digestible to your front end. But then the other hand side of being user friendly is not really being considered, or at least you want to have the same kind of level of is possible if you're visiting a branch in the same way as on your phone, but that just doesn't match. So if you want to completely transition away from the version that you have nowadays to something completely new, again, it's the question of, do you trust your external partner to come up with a completely new app in a memory safe language, for example? Or do you just say, hey, look, we're going to keep this running with that provider and we're going to build up something completely new internally? And if that is really being proven user-friendly and digestible and it's secure, then we're going to transition over for a company strategy in that area.
And do you, for example, in your experience, do you play an important role by connecting, the providers with the internal teams who are developing, this UX videos or basically the user experience? Are you the person who acts, who acted as the main link for them, or because the collaboration, especially with externals, it can be so challenging because they don't really care, to be honest, and you really care about your user. So how do you ensure this synergy between the two?
Yeah, so I myself, I would say I was never like the link between the UX people and the developers. That luckily for me worked very well very often in the companies I've worked with directly. So UX was always kind of part in the development process. Now, how good the UX is, on the other hand, is again another topic, right? We want to offer our customers. And if you're already, as a traditional bank or as an established bank, if you're already having like a huge catalog of offerings and services that you offer your customers to this day through physical presence, and you want to cramp this all up in one single digital application, it's going to look messy. I think nobody really has into something that is easily digestible. And so it's easier again for a new or fresh company to start up with just starting with certain little products or offerings for the customers, but they're very centralized, they're very user-friendly, easily to understand and digestible, and then they can build up on that. And maybe that was an issue that a lot of traditional banks had to trying to cramp again all their service portfolio, single digital solution, and not trying to increasingly topping what they are offering time after time.
You mentioned also in the beginning, for the companies who are just starting out and building it from the ground, the regulations and the compliances, they also realize it's important. And for decentralized, finance with the coin and NFTs, everything, they lack, regulations. I don't think some organizations care maybe as much, or it's just in general, it's not as, it's the purpose is not as regulated. So what do you think about it in general, about security for decentralized finance? Because also I think last year there was the increase of attacks. I think OpenSea, the company was breached.
Yes.
And what do you think about it?
So I think DeFi is something that will never go away anymore. So we all have to figure out how to properly do DeFi, right? And there are definitely a couple of companies out there, I guess, or I would say, who are doing this already quite well, because again, they have also considered themselves to be a player on the market that wants to grow substantially also and provide their offerings to a lot of people out there so that they have a better an easier way to improve their finances. And now those companies, they strive for proving their ambitions by acquiring certain licenses, right, from regulators that prove that they do actually take care of these things and that they have value in security, that they have value in resilience and longevity and sustainability. And I think you got it. If you want to invest yourself into DeFi, this is kind of like the due diligence that you as a person need to do yourself to really figure out who would be the right partner for me to invest my money in, so I can have potentially more money, of course, if I just hold that somewhere, or if I just hold some cryptocurrencies or ETFs or whatever, right? But I can't just randomly pick something that is just flying out somewhere and saying, no, we're the best, and a couple of hundred or €1,000 in there, and then a couple of days later it's gone. It's just your own, again, your own risk management that you have to consider here. If you work together with someone who has proven that they have acquired certain licenses in countries like in Germany, if you have a cryptocurrency holding license from the German regulator BaFin, that already shows that you have actually quite a level of sophistication, resilience, and how you do actually do risk management. And so those would be always the companies I would go more for to work with together and to invest my money into. Yeah.
Yeah, so you would have suggested, as let's say someone who just wants to get started, with the buying crypto, and they have to go like on the website and look, okay, what are the different security certifications that this organization has? So let's say B2C consumer, because it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, look, there are so many also cryptocurrency exchanges out there nowadays, right? That it could be hard for you to really figure out who's the best. But I mean, that's what the internet is for. So just, again, do your own due diligence, look up who's out there on the market. And if they don't do a know your customer process when you want to set up your account and put money in, that would be a big red flag. Yeah.
I know as a consultant on cybersecurity, is it kind of the company where you would like to Coinbase, or is it something, well, it's kind of equivalent to buy it, but still, is it kind of like related to that? Would it be something interesting for you?
I mean, funny that you ask. So
Okay.
I have just started working for Bitpanda.
Okay.
And Bitpanda is, like I would say, still right, Europe's biggest provider for cryptocurrencies or investment in cryptos, ETFs, materials, so gold as well. And I, just because I think the concept again of DeFi and the whole infrastructure of blockchain is what will redefine our financial and e-commerce backends in the next couple of years. This is something that everybody, from my point of view, should kind of like look into, because it's going to change a lot in the next couple of years.
How do you think it's going to change? Like, do you already kind of feel some trends that are going to emerge somehow?
I mean, yes, absolutely. Certain trends that will definitely emerge over the next couple of years are also the trend of having definitely a digital currency also in various countries. The digital euro is something that is actively being worked on, just like the digital US dollar. I mean, China is already piloting their digital yuan in certain cities, for 2 years or something like that now. And the ECB, the European Central Bank, has already also put up statements regarding how a digital euro could benefit every citizen in the EU. So that will definitely happen. And we will also definitely rely on companies and providers who are experts in that field, because they can bring in the value of their experience from their past work, and make those ecosystems way more secure.
Okay, super interesting. I think I'm gonna look up on that, because I was trying to educate myself a little bit more about finance, because so far I'm a safe investor. But it's very interesting. And like, speaking on the personal level, I think you've also been involved, as an ambassador of something that's called Mission Top 5.
Yes.
So the goal was to kind of propel Germany to the top 5 digital nations in Europe by 2025. So that's great. I guess my question was like, what's exactly your level of involvement there?
Right. So the Mission Top 5 is something that I basically kind of stumbled upon, if I believe, nearly now 2 years ago, due to my network and LinkedIn, basically. So I've seen a message from a friend of mine who is a CEO of a company here in Germany, of a consultancy company, and he's also very active in all things digitalization. So he's offering the digitalization as a service through his company. And around that time, I believe, this report came out. I'm not sure anymore who published it. That's one thing I just forgot real quick, because the fact that Germany was on not the last position, but the position before the last position.
Really?
Exactly, of digital nations in the EU, if I remember correctly. I don't know I don't think it was worldwide. I think it was the EU. Yeah, but it was devastating, right? It was a devastating result for Germany. And there are certain people here now that have taken that, that have said, yes, we know that, because look at what we have to do in terms of paperwork. For example, if we go to an official government agency, there's basically
Personal experience, I know.
exactly. So everybody knows how these bureaucracies in Germany still work. Very manual, very non-digital, so to speak, right? And because of that, they said, "Hey, we wanna do something to help all of Germany again to go into the top 5 of digital countries." And so I've met these people, and it's a non-profit organization, right? So they're not making any money through offering their services or something, but the mission in itself is really to bolster digitalization and security for German companies that have never thought about this topic so far. And so what I'm doing in my role as security ambassador there is helping everybody. First and foremost, I'm trying to raise awareness, of course, again, once more, right, through various channels, through this podcast, for example, through conferences that I'm at. And I'm trying to raise the awareness of, we're all in this together. And if you don't want to die out, right, because others are just better than us, and due to globalization, nobody really cares anymore where a company is coming from, as long as their product is really good and is secure. And so if we want to keep our economic advantage, so to speak, right, or the position that we're in, basically, we need to really improve in these areas. And so through Mission Top 5, we're offering just consultancy services, basically, right? We're going towards we're going towards companies, SMEs, small medium entities, most importantly, because that is the biggest hole kind of that we see here in Germany, where they really lack in security and in digitalization. So that's what we want to really improve, to also bring more attention to the overall topic of we gotta be better if we want to keep up our standpoint. And yeah, that's what we're just trying to do. That's what we're trying to achieve. Of also political parties, other NPOs and NGOs, to just build up a system that we can offer all these things, all these awareness topics, and also technical support to these companies in a seamless manner.
It's very interesting because Germany is indeed very like industrial country, I would say. But how, for example, for especially SMBs, let's say you have a manufacturing plant that produces like engine components in Baden-Württemberg. I guess I pronounced it correctly, but like in a kind of a bit in the middle of nowhere, like how do you approach them, like to actually say, okay, now this steps to become more digitalized, to become more secure, like do the people actually also, are people actually...
I think this really is kind of like a 50-50 situation, to be honest. So a lot of times the good side of things, or the good coin side, so to speak, is if people are actively reaching out to us, right, or to me and asking for certain topics, where you are already seeing that they're aware of the topic and they want to invest something into that because they think it's important. If we are the ones trying to reach out to companies and just saying, hey, have you ever considered this, right? Should we share something with you? A lot of times you just have the reaction of, why should I look at that? I'm just a small business, right? I'm not that great of an attack for someone out there, which is always where I just think you haven't seen the news in the past 1 or 2 years, apparently, right? Attackers out there don't really care what their source of attack is or who they're attacking, right? As long as you have clicked on that link in that phishing email, they're just going to ransom you or steal your data and then want to have money from you. They don't freaking care what kind of company you are or how big you are. They just want to see the money. And I think this is also one of those things that kind of needs to change. And it is changing more and more because the impacts are happening, right? More and more. And so what we also see is sometimes a CEO coming to us and saying, hey, look, who's just one town next to us has just been ransomed. And this now, it freaks me the hell out. What can I do? And so those are the people where I say, okay, perfect. You already are aware about it. You want to do something. You have the right mindset. Let's do something. But then on the other end, you have the other sides that still say, why should they, I'm not interested.
And for the people who will say, let's do something, what are the first things that you do?
I mean, first and
foremost, what would you recommend, for people who are listening to us and also now think, okay, let's do something. What would you recommend?
I mean, my first recommendation, of course, is get someone. Either you have someone already internally that has maybe a security position or that works in your IT department and is security savvy, right? Then grab that person and just tell them, hey, look, what can we do? Where do you see gaps? But if you don't have someone like that, which is also very often the case, of course, is get yourself some help from someone externally. Either you go, for example, to the Mission Top 5, or you can also come directly to me, to other colleagues who are doing this freelance kind of work, and just ask for, hey, can you tell us what we should do? And what we will always do, first and foremost, is some first kind of, let's say, call it cyber risk assessment of your company. We would come in, we would take a look at your overall IT structure. What kind of, do you have a production system in place? So do you have a mixture of IT and OT? And what kind of prevention and defense measures do you already have in place, if any? How old is your landscape, right? Do you patch regularly? Stuff like that. So we would just make an external and internal assumption of your overall security posture. And because of that, pull out some quick wins that you could implement. A quick win for me would always be training for your people in your company, where you teach them about security, because it's easy to do, right? It's relatively fast to implement, and you're raising the bar of your strongest defense, which are your people, which are your employees. They are your strongest defense, and so that would always be a good quick win if you don't do something like that. And then, of course, on technical sides or process sides, right? Identity and access management. What do you have in place there? Do you have 4 eyes principles? Do you know your assets, right? Is there something like shadow IT where people have just spun up servers here and there because they wanted to test out stuff? That is all. It's happening everywhere, of course, right? But you gotta be aware about all of your hardware and all of your software that is just jumping around in your network, or else you will never find an intruder. These are basically the things that we would always kind of do, just do a first assessment so we know what we have to take care of, and then basically provide the next steps, the next possible solutions for them to follow up on.
Very interesting. I think I will also share some steps in the description after
Sure.
the podcast. So hopefully, people find it useful as well. That will be great. And I think one question that I always ask all guests in the podcast: would you have advice to the people who are just starting in the security field? For example, want to work in your specific case, either as in fintech or traditional banking, or especially as a consultant, what would you advise them to learn, to do, how to prepare themselves for this job if they are feeling passion for it?
So I think for everybody who wants to take a step into security, my biggest proposal really, or my biggest advice would really be completely open-minded to what you want to jump into, because our field is so diverse and we have so many different things to look at. So it makes sense that you consider something as a start where you can focus on and not just trying to grasp your head around everything. So either if you're technical, right, there are stuff like application security, infrastructure security, product security, network security. So all the different more very detailed things that you could jump into and get really down to the basics, and then strive forward in getting better and better in those fields and areas. You can also be a expert in secure development again, right? Try to figure out where your ambition really is, right? What you want to do as of now. If you want to do again either stuff like application security or are more from the infrastructure side, because you're not a learned software developer, but you're more an IT admin. So maybe that is something more that you would get interest in, or identity and access management. Same here. And then from there, develop yourself into the area that you deem yourself fit into, right? Because also not everybody wants to be a CISO, and I can totally understand that, because it's a hell of a job, and we are the ones who are we need to take care about all these topics but we also rely heavily on the people that we have in the individual areas to give us the best results, right, and the best information, so that we can make good educated decisions. But it's a way that you gotta get yourself onto and develop yourself further into, either this kind of managerial side, or of course, what is also possible, a very being an expert in a specific field as well. But that would, I guess, be my advice. Be completely open-minded. Also, just if you don't have any security experience at all, but would like to jump into that, look out for some kind of junior positions that are offered by companies, and just apply. Even if you don't have maybe like a certificate or something like that yet, still apply. Bring out into your resume or into your CV the reason why you want to start in that company, why you think you would be a good fit for that, and even though that you do not have some security background yet, show why you want to still do it. very often, I would say, from my personal experience, I would choose you way more than the next guy that is saying, I've been doing this for years, but also I have no ambition.
Okay, so you privilege like ambition and passion for it over like experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, why?
I think people with ambition are really the ones who are changing the world,
Mm.
right? And I think who was the Simon Sinek? I think right. He coined that phrase of you don't hire for skill, you hire for attitude, because skill you can always teach,
Yeah.
and I'm a strong supporter of that. So skills you can teach afterwards. You can provide your colleagues, your employees. You can provide them with trainings. You can provide them with the necessary equipment that they need to do their work. And if they don't have the attitude to also work in that specific field, to put themselves into these kinds of areas of security, then also giving them the technical skills will probably not bring you any benefit.
I agree with you with that. I still think persons that yeah, need to develop more experience, professional experience, and be able to judge, from that far. And do you have any recommendation of the book, that security book, that you would advise someone to read?
Various.
Okay.
Uh,
And then top three, let's say top
top
three.
top three. So let me look because I have most of my books up there. I think so. One of the books that I just recently read, and that is very, very well written, and I think is displaying the overall concept of zero trust really, really nicely, is Project Zero Trust
Okay.
by George Finney. Very, very good read. You can run through that book also relatively fast because it's not very thick. And it's, again, outlining the overall concept of zero trust and how you can implement zero trust in a company to support the business very nicely. So that would be one. Another one is social engineering book and resource you could think of nowadays, because also social engineering, right, is again still basically the biggest attack vector that is being used out there to attack a company. It's always, or 95% of the time, it's through the people. And so by learning how an attacker is actually doing this through social engineering, you can put up the right defenses against it. All very perfectly in his book. It's very nicely written. So also a very good book that I would suggest. And then I would probably say it's not one. So it's not a book that is very technical, but it's a so to speak a sci-fi book, or it's just
Is it a
story.
Dune?
Sorry?
Is it a Dune?
Yeah, no, it's not Dune. If you would like to read Dune, go ahead. Absolutely, it's a tremendous book series, but it will definitely mess with your head. But there's a very good book out there that is basically displaying how would we as society and Europe in general react if we had a huge energy blackout. And the book itself is just called Blackout.
Okay.
And the guy who's written it, he was interviewing people from all kinds of different government agencies all throughout Europe, the energy agencies. He was speaking with various police agencies, with Interpol, and so on and so forth. And so he has written this book of a really where you altered some of the energy infrastructure into the level that it's producing, if I believe, too much energy. And
Okay.
because of that, because it's all interconnected, so we have a hugely interconnected energy network in all of Europe, because right, we're passing electricity from one country to another. But if there's too much energy, this could cause havoc on those plants. And because of that, then there would be a huge blackout. And he is describing what would happen, how society is happening, reacting to that, to just a couple of days after no electricity, people are riding in the streets and stuff like this. It's also not for the faint-hearted.
Definitely sci-fi.
Yeah, but it's very well written. But what's I think most disturbing is that if you have finished the book, I don't want to say I'm not going to say if it has a happy ending or not. I'm just going to say
No
that
spoilers.
that the author on the very last pages basically provided some background again into his research work for writing the book, and has said or has written down that he even softened a couple of those critical reactions that the public would basically do, or else his book would have ended like halfway through because we would have all killed each other or something like that. Yeah, so in like these real crisis scenarios, he kind of softened the tone down a bit. Yeah, but that is a very, very good book as well.
Okay, I'm very curious. This one, this how you solved it. So I'm going to look it up and send it to my Goodreads to read as well. So I think we're towards the end of the podcast. So thanks a lot for joining and for sharing your experience with us. It was very insightful, and I hope our listeners they all would learn a lot like me. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Alexandra. Again, but I'm very honored to have been invited to your podcast. I think the last couple of episodes that I have seen in your channel are also really, really good. So awesome peers that you have in there. And looking forward to see more of that, see more of you and your colleague. Oh, and before I forget it, because I'm seeing it here. So this book, right?
I'm not sure. I guess it's
Yeah. My cable.
okay. Yeah, I think it's probably in the recording, but yeah.
This book is called. It's written in German, but for everybody who's German, it's called CISO und das wilde Internet Rambazamba, which is basically it's a child's book that is displaying on with a cartoon style the job of security people. So fighting against ransomware, fighting against viruses, and it's written by a woman here in Germany. Really a good book if you have kids and you want to explain to them what your job is in security and what you're trying to do.
So you're already educated.
My next generation, exactly.
So hopefully in several years, they're deep down following to your steps or build much more secure, applications or organizations as well. So
Fingers crossed.
Okay. Well, thanks so much.